How old is old enough to tell a kid he's adopted? How can children and parents get along in a dysfunctional family? How can kids from different cultures and societies learn to cope in new settings and in new environments with different values? And how can transactional analysis help us to understand all this? Stay tuned to find out. So when a kid is adopted, at what stage do you tell them that they're adopted? And at what stage is a healthy place to tell that person that they've been adopted and they're not from that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think this is a very tricky one. Yeah? And I know transactional analysis is obviously a framework, but then I think that's where I think this is when it actually hits a brick wall sometimes. Yeah, and it did sound a bit contradictory, because I think what you were saying that you shouldn't basically inform the child until they get to a certain age, and then say, okay, cool, like okay, I think you were saying 6 to 7 years of age. So when a child is, I think 3, 4, 5, even when their adult ego has been developed, you shouldn't say it until they reach a certain age and then inform them that, okay, cool, you are adopted, and these are the reasons why we lied to you before in the beginning stages, right? However, this is what I say it contradicts itself, because I think in the beginning, when we were reading the book from the beginning stage, I think it did mention something along the lines of, I think there were some kids. So there's a mom that was cooking. The mom was in the kitchen cooking, and obviously the mom's son brings the neighbor's kids to the house and is asking for ice cream, right? And the kids always do this. So in order for the mom to actually sort of like, obviously the mom didn't want to be point blank say, look, I'm not giving you guys ice cream.
Any ice cream.
Because you always come around here asking for ice cream. So she gives some sort of like, peripheral type excuse for why, they shouldn't basically be in the house. Basically trying to pile them off. But trying to get them to leave the house, basically. Yeah. So she says like, all these other excuses or whatever it is, and then gets the kids to actually leave the house. So then they eventually leave the house, right? So the mom is saying stuff like, you're making the kitchen untidy. The kids are looking around thinking, you make the kitchen tidy anyway. The mom probably say something like, oh, ice cream is not good for you because you're gonna have fillings in your teeth. The kids are like, yeah, your teeth are fucked up anyway. You got fillings in your teeth. Do you know what I mean? And at that stage, I think Eric Byrne, or whoever wrote this book, what's his name? Thomas, fucking hell. The author. This is shit, man. This is terrible. So at that stage, the author was saying, right, okay, cool. You're saying all these things, right? But then there's a mismatch with what obviously the kid is observing, right? So the kid walks away like really confused, and he says that the best thing to do is actually to be as honest as possible and tell the kid the main reason, right? Okay, so you haven't lied. So I guess at that stage the parent didn't lie, but then to an extent they were kind of like there were some white lies. It wasn't like straight to the point. Yeah. You basically sort of like pussyfooting basically. Yeah,
around the topic.
Yeah.
And rather than telling them exactly what it was, and like I guess okay.
Yeah, rather than telling them what it was. Yeah. So I guess my point is going back to the adoption. Yeah. To then all of a sudden then come here and say that, okay, cool, you shouldn't inform the child, even though they might have an adult. You shouldn't inform, even though they might have an adult ego, the child that they're adopted until they reach a certain age. I think I disagree. I disagree with. Yeah, I think the parents can be as transparent. Should be as transparent as possible. From the young.
Yeah. So I guess you would agree with a model of telling them from young, if they were to ask for like 4 years, no matter what age it is, it's about just being honest.
I think so. I think so. But I think obviously, so I think the main thing is about allowing the child to feel like they belong, and that's just like, I don't have a lived experience with obviously having any adopted kids, but I'm just looking at purely from the literature. So the literature saying one thing and then saying another thing here, I think is it's sort of like it contradicts itself.
Yeah. I think another thing talked about is how much honesty is too much honesty, right? And how much honesty should you? So I mean, at one point, does honesty become detrimental? For example, in the case of the adopted kid, right? If you tell him at a young age that he's adopted, and he might not comprehend, what that means for him, and he carries this burden around with him, is that a healthy thing for a parent to do at that point in time, or for the adopted parents to do at that point in time? And I guess that opens the discussion as well to being honest in transactions, or in situations, or no matter what the situation is. Is it okay to be dishonest if you feel like it's for the betterment of someone?